So without further ado, this is the second practice passage. Okay, then we can start going into the passage together. So the passage says, recent studies have shown that television can adversely impact cognitive processes in both children and young adults. In previous studies, researchers found that individuals ages 6 to 23 higher than average amounts of television watching led to an 8 to 14% decrease in the ability of participants to quickly and correctly solve math problems. In addition, participants were less likely to recall list items or accurately identify emotions on a confederate during an in-person experiment. So we see here, based on the first paragraph, recent studies show that television can, cause 8 to 14% decrease in the ability of participants to quickly and correctly solve math problems, or just, impacts their cognitive processes. So that's mainly that first paragraph. And then the second paragraph, a group of researchers is specifically interested in studying the effect of television on memory. The researchers recruit at least 50 participants in each of the following age groups: 6 to 8, 9 to 11, 12 to 14, and 15 to 17. Each of the participants watches 15 hours of TV per week as confirmed by the participants themselves and a guardian. The participants watch a range of television programming throughout the week. So in the second paragraph, it's setting up the experiment to say that the researchers tested different age groups, and each of these groups watched 15 hours of TV with a range of different programs, but just that they're watching that 15 hours of TV per week. And then for this third paragraph, to conduct the experiment, the researchers split up the participants in each age group into group 1 or group 2. Group 1 participants watched 15 hours of TV a week for 3 consecutive weeks. And at the end of the third week, the participants are brought into a testing center and given a list of 20 names. 10 minutes later, they are asked to recall as many names as possible. The group 1 participants then watch 15 hours of TV a week for the next 3 consecutive weeks, weeks 4 to 6, and repeat the memory assessment. Group 2 participants follow an identical plan as group 1 participants for week 1 through 3. However, during weeks 4 through 6, group 2 participants are not allowed to watch any TV during the week. Group 2 participants complete the same memory test as Group 1 students at the end of week 3 and at the end of week 6. The results from the experiment are shown in Figure 1 for the 9 to 11-year-old age group. And we see here, this is the figure for the 9 to 11-year-old age group. So based on this third paragraph, we notice that the researchers are splitting the participants into Group 1 and Group 2. And Group 1 and Group 2 differ just in the week 3 to 6 area, where for Group 1, in weeks 3 to 6, the participants are still watching 15 hours of TV a week. But for Group 2, in weeks 3 to 6, they are not watching any more TV during the week, and they're still tested at the same time points. So we see in Figure 1 here that there is on the x-axis a group for the week 3 test, and there is also a group for the week 6 test. So we see also the number of names recalled. And based on this, it also has the color coding for Group 1 and Group 2, and we're seeing how the effects of being in these different groups, and also when they're tested at the week 3 or week 6 stage, affects the number of names they could recall. So kind of going over what we did last time with the passage. What was the main point that they wanted to mention in that first paragraph? You can just put it in the chat or unmute, up to you. Just a simple like few words probably would be able to sum up that. Okay, how about okay. Yes, definitely. Yes, exactly. So television lowers the cognitive abilities of individuals. Um, and that affects memory and all these other things that they're testing. So great. And how about this passage only has one figure. So what is something that you're noticing based on the figure? In week 6 test, um, recalled more and nothing is statistically significant. Yeah, so both of you, oh, hold on, wait, reading the chat. Okay. Um, yeah, so we see here definitely both of you guys got points that um, you can see in this graph. So group 2 in week 6 recalled more, as we can see here. So that may be in effect by the difference between the groups. We don't know exactly, but like also here that nothing is statistically significant. That's also true because we don't see any stars or asterisks. So we do not exactly know that, there is this major statistically significant difference between this group 2 and group 1 in that week 6. So we see that there is like um, a higher amount of names recalled in group 2 at week 6 compared to group 1. It's just we can't exactly say that what we changed caused that. And I guess what is something that, you know, potentially the researchers could look into next? You can completely take a random, I guess, angle on it. Yeah. So, what is potentially another experiment that the researchers could do? Based on what they found from the first figure. Um, so test it on a different age group. That um, I would say, I mean, they could definitely test it on a different age group. Probably like when you say different age group, greater than 17, probably, because that's yeah. Okay, yeah. That's definitely an experiment that they can do. So great. Yeah, it's true. Thinking caps on. But anyway, so yeah, so that's definitely something that to do. I'm just gonna skip this slide because this is that, and then we're gonna go into that first question. We have 50% saying A and 50% saying C. So 50% of you are right. But I would say it's a good thing. So the answer is A. It's a good thing that you guys didn't pick B or D because those are a little bit different. But and at least, both the primacy and recency effect are kind of like under the same like set of ideas. And so I'm going to explain this after going through this question. So it says, in a follow-up study, researchers found that participants are best able to recall names at the end of the list better than names at the beginning of the list. And so this is known as, and it's known as the recency effect, because what the recency effect states is that when people are given a list, they tend to remember the most recent things that they read. So that would be like the last thing on their list. And so that's why A is the correct answer, because we can see in this question they're able to recall names at the end of the list better than the beginning. And so on the other side, the primacy effect is when they believe that people can remember things better at the beginning of the list, or the ones that they're seeing like first. And so that is C. That's what, the term in C means. And so with B and D, so proactive interference and retroactive interference are when, so proactive interference is when the past things that you have remembered in your brain kind of affect the new things that you're trying to learn. And then with retroactive interference, it's when new things kind of affect the things that you have already learned in the past. So I guess the way I kind of help to remember it, because I know when I was studying, I used to get a little mixed up between the two. I think retro, as in like the past, and the retro is the one that's interfering with what you're trying to learn. And then with the proactive is interfering with what you already know. So I think we're gonna go into the next question. And I'm gonna give you guys like a minute as well. So we have 50% saying A and 50% saying C for this one. So the answer is C. So the question asks, which of the following do the researchers not account for in the study? So A says intergroup variability. And so in a sense, they do account for this if you let me refer to the passage. So we see here that the group of researchers recruit 50 participants in each of the following age groups. And so they are aware that, each of these age groups may have differences. And so they did the same group 1 and group 2 on all of these different groups. All of these different age groups. And so they do, I'm sure, although they only showed figure 1 for the 9 to 11-year-old age group, I'm sure that they also noted the differences between these different age groups. And so that's why for A, that's why that's incorrect, is because they do account for this, and that's why they did all these different age groups. And so that also goes into why D is not the right answer, because both of them are different. And then for B, amount of TV watched, they do account for this in the study, because they specifically say for group 1, they have the 15 hours per week. And for group 2, they also have group 2 and group 1 differ in that 15 hours between week 3 and week 6. So the answer is C, because they say in the question, sorry, not in the question, but in the passage, that they didn't specify as to like what type of TV programs they watched. If you remember from here. So it says the participants watch a range of television programming throughout the week. We only know that they do the 15 hours, not necessarily the type. And what is intergroup variability? So intergroup variability is just differences between groups. So when you think inter, like between. Even when you're thinking with like intercellular, so like between the cells. So now we're going to go into this next question, and I'm going to put up the poll. So we have 100% saying choice B. And so you guys, great job. So yeah, the question says, which of the following conclusions is not supported by the results shown in figure 1? And we know from our understanding of figure 1 that group 2 and group 1 showed that difference in that week 6 area. And they were pretty much the same at that first part. So for choice A, group 1 and 2 participants. Sorry, could you mute, please? Thank you. So with choice A, group 1 and 2 participants recall a similar number of names when they watch 15 hours of TV a week. So we definitely know that they do based on that week 3 group where they are doing that check-in when they watch that same 15 hours of TV per week, they recall the same amount of names. And for choice C, the ability of group 2 participants to recall names improved on the week 6 test. So we definitely see that there was an improvement. To what extent that improvement is, we don't know if there's a significant difference, but we can say that, there was that improvement. And then for D, the number of names recalled by participants is associated with time spent watching TV. And this is something that we can make these associations. We just can't make like definite causal relationships. And so we know that watching less TV based on that group 2 is associated with better ability to recall the amount of names. And so that's why choice D is incorrect. For choice B, says retroactive interference prevents group 1 participants from performing as well as group 2 participants on the week 6 test. So based on that figure, we do not know at all what is causing group 1 participants from doing as well on week 6. And we definitely don't know if it's retroactive interference because there wasn't anything that was mentioned for that. And so that's why choice B is the correct answer, because it's not a conclusion that we can make. And side note that choice B, I feel like we would probably assume or think that the group 1 participants performed not as well in week 6 because of the amount of TV hours watched, but that's like just another association. And also, I think I may have, so I'm just going to reiterate the difference between proactive interference and retroactive interference because I might have made a slight mistake when I was explaining it before, but retroactive interference is when, so think of it as the retro interfered, so the past information that you have in your head that was earlier on is interfered by new information, and with proactive interference, it's when the new stuff that you're trying to learn is interfered by, or the new stuff is interfered by the information that you have. Okay. So now we're going to go into the next question. We have 50% saying A and 50% saying B. And so the answer is B, experimental study. And the question just asks, which of the following best describes the type of study described in the passage? And so the reason why the answer is B is because we see that the researchers are manipulating their groups in terms of adjusting the amount of time that they're watching TV. And so they're trying to find that they're trying to control for a lot of things. However, based on, the experiment, they're not controlling for everything, but it is experimental in that sense. There is also a difference between like a controlled experiment and just like an experimental study. And so that's why, because the researchers are manipulating variables, that's why it's choice B. For A, an observational study, that's more in the sense of if you were to watch groups of those different age groups and just seeing like the amount of TV watched and looking at maybe their memory recall, but not quite specifically saying that they have to watch that 15 hours a week and splitting them in group 1 and 2. You're just kind of watching and not really making any other changes to their habits. For a survey study, that, as we know in this particular passage, they didn't really ask for any surveys. And for a case study, we're also not differentiating between cases and controls in this one. So that's why choice C and D are incorrect.